Dead Yeasties.
Oh, yeah.
Deadly Beasties. We can make a rap song out of that.
And she will.
It's not 5 o'clock, and they don't care. Welcome to Wine to 5. Entertainment, education, and everyday drinking for everyday people. Your hosts are Valerie Caruso and Stephanie Davis, two wine educators who don't need a clock to know when to pour that next glass.
Today we have a Potpourri podcast party with patrons. We are tasting 4 wines and 2 spirits together. I'm Val. I'm here with Steph. We're recording in Colorado Springs. We're around the dining room table with friends who not only live here in Colorado Springs, but also support the Wine to 5 podcast.
And behind the mics are Diane Howard, one of our It's Not 5 O'Clock and We Don't Care listeners. She is a dear friend of Val and John's and retired Army. And we also have Jeff Eccles, one of our tenacious tasters and our podcast brother. Jeff was on our show way back in December of 2015. And he hosts and produces the award-winning We Like Drinking podcast and records every week with his co-hosts, Jeff Solomon and John Ruyak.
Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
This is going to be a lot of fun. So we've actually been drinking now for almost an hour, and we're going to go ahead and go through some really crazy wines today. But before we get started, I kind of want to hear a little bit about Diane. You want to tell us a little bit more about yourself? What do you want the listeners to know about you that we may not have said?
The roll of her eyes says she wasn't ready for that.
How long have you been listening to our show?
I have been listening. Well, actually, I did a huge binge listen. I did like several years. How long have you had the show?
Since
2015.
4th year, yeah.
Yep.
We just started our 4th season.
I did like 2 years in one long binge. Lots of gardening at that time. I was just getting out of the Army, so I was preparing for that. But yeah, you guys are great for binge listening and so much information. I've always liked wine. Ever since I was a little kid, we drank a lot of cheap Riuniti wine when we were kids.
Yeah. Hear that, Sharon?
Cheap Mogan David, Riuniti, and then it went to the wine in the box in college days. Mm-hmm. White Zinfandel, everybody loves that. I went into the Army late in life, but I enjoyed it. Took me to exotic places, a couple of deployments. Met my husband in the Army. I didn't think I would. Met him in Korea on a tour there. So, but he just retired. I retired a couple of years ago. He retired this year.
Is he into wine too?
Well, I'm trying to.
He'll drink
get
it.
him. Yes,
okay.
He will drink it. Actually, he doesn't drink it at home, but he will drink it here. When we come here, he'll drink it.
Yeah, it always surprises me because I usually don't have a glass out for him. I'm like, make sure you have beer for Dale. And then I'll say, well, I'm going to pour some champagne or I'm going to pour whatever, because Diane always brings some banging bottles over. And he's like, yeah, I'll have some. Mm-hmm. And he drinks that Lambrusco that I keep on.
Oh, yeah. Staff. He likes sweet. He's German. His mother's German. So he keeps saying, no, I like sweet wine. I don't want anything dry. But I think slowly, if we just keep spoon feeding him, I think he'll become a wine lover.
Yeah. I bet he'll like one of these wines today.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The third one I think he would really like.
Yeah, these are some crazy ones.
So Jeff, you're on now. You're on because our listeners, if they haven't listened to your podcast or our previous episode with you, give us a little info on the Jeff Eccles and also your podcast.
Yeah, so I'm Jeff Eccles. I followed these ladies. I'm a certified specialist of wine through the Society of Wine Educators. I did not go full bore and go for the CWE as these ladies did. I host the We Like Drinking podcast. Really, if you haven't listened to the show, I know we get a lot of cross listenership between our shows, but we're like Diane's family. We have wine drinkers and we have beer drinkers, and there's no reason that they can't coexist on a podcast, in our opinion. So we have myself and we have 2 Jeffs that are the wine guys, and we have John, who is the beer guy. He's the brewer. And so we really like to talk about wine and beer, and we take a really lighthearted approach to it. Talk about kind of, some of the silliness going on in the news, in the wine or beer world. Focus on drinks, like you guys have your grape gabs. We have our drinking episodes. It's a good marriage between our shows. I think that if you ever look up We Like Drinking on iTunes, you will see Wine25 as you should be listening to this show as well.
You guys have one thing we don't have a lot of, and that is rants.
Yes, we do have a lot of rants. I thought you were going to say certain other...
smoked whale testicles?
Yeah, I thought that's where you're going to go there.
Yes, smoked whale testicles. That's a thing, and you got to listen to the episode. I mean, all the way back to episode 1.
Episode 1, John found an article about a brewery in Iceland that was making a beer, and smoked whale testicles was part of their ingredient list. And we laughed at it, but then the next week, somebody said smoked whale testicles, and now all but one episode, somebody has said it. And it's so great. We always try to give our listeners like some forewarning that this may happen, but sometimes we don't. And then it happens, and the look on their face of like, did somebody just say smoked whale testicles? So you're going to have a lot of record scratches in this episode.
I was going to say, I have the sound queued up ready to insert into the audio, but we kind of want to get... I just spit coconut everywhere. Okay. We kind of yummy. And we kind of want to get into the wine because we've been kind of going at this for over 5 minutes now. But we're going to talk about the first wine in our lineup. And what's really cool about this wine, Diane actually brought it back from New Zealand. And it is the 2017 White Mischief by the Hunting Lodge. And that is in Auckland. And I want to give Diane an opportunity to tell us a little bit about the wine before we start tasting it, even though we've been drinking it with lunch. But before we start trying to figure out what the hell is in this glass, Diane.
I have no idea. My husband and I, we kind of gave ourselves a present for finishing up the Army. We went to New Zealand, and we have 2 great friends, Joe and Max, so I wanted to give them a shout out. They let us stay with them for almost 3 weeks in a beautiful, beautiful home out in just... like green pastures and horses and palm trees. And if you get a chance to go to New Zealand, you definitely have to. Well, up the street or up the road from them is it's a restaurant, winery, the Hunting Lodge. I think it had been open a few years. Joe and I had gone there for some ladies' luncheon, and I was able to try the wine, and it was really good. And then before we left New Zealand, we stopped, and I believe she was the owner. She gave us a really nice tasting of probably 6 different wines, and I believe one of these was one of them, because after I'm on my 4th tasting, if it's a pretty good pour, I tend not to remember things. But what's special about this, it's a blended wine, and it's called White Mischief just because you don't know what it is. She said that she didn't even know what it was. I'm hoping you ladies can figure it out.
We'd love to take a shot at figuring it out. And I'm kind of curious, Steph, what your initial thoughts were on this wine.
I don't know. It's definitely some sort of a blend, but it has like some ripping acidity to it that feels so nice. So it's refreshing. You feel it on the gums. I don't know. There might be some Sauvignon Blanc. There's a little bit of grassiness. I mean, it's so hard to say what's in it.
Jeff?
I was just handed this glass and go, here, have fun.
Yeah.
And the first thing I thought of when I put my nose into it was New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc before I knew anything about what it was. And same on the palate. Like, there's that grassiness. There's a little bit of that tropical fruit. There's that acidity. So to me, this is primarily Sauvignon Blanc. And then I don't know the other one.
Right.
I don't know if it's Semillon. I don't know what the other grape or multiple grapes are in it.
Yeah.
But to me, the base is Sauvignon Blanc.
Your thoughts?
Judged on the aromaticity of the wine at first. If I were like to try to analyze this wine, I'm like, okay, well, remember what I've learned that I've forgotten. When I put my nose in the glass, the nose doesn't have to go too far into the glass before you start smelling things. And but while it was still cool, was a little colder earlier, I was still stuck on the Albarino from a couple weeks ago. And I was like, oh yeah, juicy fruit gum, like Albarino. I wonder if there's some Albarino in there. And I was looking for a little more of that, even the salinity, even though we're talking different side of different hemisphere. And then, like Jeff said, I said, well, the acidity was ripping, or you said.
Yeah,
the
ripping.
acidity, the
Both of us,
ripping
yeah.
acidity. So that made me think, well, maybe there's some Sauvignon Blanc. And then I thought I got a little bit of phenolic bitterness. I'm like,
There's that, or and I know some people might call it pho, but almost a fingernail polish remover kind of aroma to it. It's like right when you put your nose into it, I get it, especially now that it's warmed up a little bit, and then it kind of disappears pretty quick. But there's something on that initial sniff that I can't quite put my finger on.
So that's why I was wondering if there was maybe some Pinot Grigio or something in there.
I actually think that's a good guess. You know, it's a cool bottle. It's screen printed. And it has all these icons on it, obviously things that represent what's happening in the vineyard with bees and wildflowers and grasses and chickens and carrots. And so I think it's a fun bottle, beautiful wine. Thank you for sharing it with us.
It tastes like chicken.
Tastes like don't.
It would be good with chicken.
I cannot tell you Justin's joke on the chicken joke. But
Well, I'm thinking of the movie A Good Year. There's this part where the guy's trying to explain how bad the vines are, and he goes, "It's chicken shit." Chicken shit. When you saw the chicken on the bottle, I'm like, chicken shit. But no, the wine is absolutely great. I really found it refreshing with our wraps for lunch.
Yep.
And I would drink this. Too bad we can't buy it.
I know. She said that they were trying to get it in the States, but we're kind of sticklers.
Thank you for bringing that back and sharing it. We've got the only bottle in the country, I think, right now. So that's pretty cool.
The nose is really fun on it too. Like every time I go in, I just got orange peel the last time I put my nose into it. So every time you go in there, I'm getting a little bit something different. So
yeah, lime, and it's just got nice citrus, but it has some stone fruits and roundness to it too.
Very fun wine.
So before our listeners click us off because they can't buy this in the States, so why the heck are they listening? Maybe we should talk about the next wine.
The next wine, which they probably also can't get. Oh, shoot. But that's, this episode is more about, interesting finds, obscure wines, which is what we love. And this wine is something I brought back for Val when I was in Italy in 2016. I had the chance to meet Liu from Scaccia Diavoli Winery and her man Joe. And Joe runs a very cool wine bar that's called Vini and Vinili, and it's a wine and vinyl little bar that's only open when he wants it to be open, which is even better. And I said, well, what's the most interesting bottle that you have for sale? And it is this, at the time, this is what it was, a 2012 CV, which is Pinot Grigio Ambra from Movia.
The region is Goriška Brda.
Goriška Brda.
In the Primorska
of Slovenia. I mean, how cool is that? So it's an orange wine or an ombre or amber wine. And so I was like, oh, I know it's not Italian, but Val's probably had so many Italian wines. She's not impressed with that anymore. I need to bring her back something incredibly geeky. And the Slovenian orange wine was it. And so she's waited all this time, which is not why I bring back wines for you, girl.
I know, but it is so much more fun exploring, and especially exploring with different palettes. But I was really looking forward to this one because I saw the Ambra on the front, and it says Pinot Ambra on the front, and then it says Grigio Ambra on the back, I think, of the bottle, if I'm not mistaken. But what this is...
that right there.
Well, there's the bottle right here. So it says Sivo Pinot Ambra on the back, and on the front, it says CV Grigio Ambra on the front. So what they do to make these wines, I know we've talked about them quite lustily on this show before.
Lustily.
Because the Pinot Grigio grape is a gray grape, or the skins are kind of pink and blue, and it's not really a white grape. So what happens is when you let the grape hang out on the skins for a week or two, like they did with this wine, then you get this beautiful copper color. This, what they call in Italy, they call it romato. So, but it is what they call an amber wine. Some would say a gold wine, like they did in Kevin Bigos's book.
Right.
But as Exotic Wine Travel folks told us, they don't like it when you call it orange wine. Even though the wine has got a beautiful, like, orange color to it, it's more of a copper. They did spend some time in the wood as well. And you can just tell by tasting the wine. But I'm curious, Jeff, what do you think of this one?
It's very unique. I mean, from the aroma to the palate, it's very unique. And I was surprised by the acidity on it as well. Like this almost, it goes toe to toe with that Sauvignon, the first one that we just have, the White Mischief. Oh, hold on, just for Val, because I know how much she loves it. Oh, you beat me to it. Except she spit all over her microphone.
Spit all over my microphone. I'm
Somehow she was breathing air in, yet spitting on it.
Guys, all do it. Everybody do it. Sorry, listeners. Bravi.
I think it has some nice gingery notes and like melon. It kind of actually has a aroma as it looks. Like that kind of a fruit.
Yeah, and it's in stark contrast to the first one, where the first one was very fruit forward. This one is very not fruit forward. This one, it's much more earthy
and spicy
in the flavor, and spicy and woodsy, and
it's like savory.
It is. That's a very good description. It's very savory compared to the first one, which was very fruit forward and enjoyable, and not this one, but this one's very unique.
And a long finish.
This is one of those, we always would say this is a white wine that behaves like a red, even though technically not white if we're looking at color, but it is made with a white grape. So this is something that could stand up to a variety of foods. It's not something that, but yet I think it's sipping it by itself.
I like it by itself.
I like to meditate on wines like this. I like to really just sit there, let them play in the glass, give them a sniff, maybe chew on them a bit, slurp them around, drip it down the front of my shirt, whatever.
Spit it on your microphone.
Spit it on my microphone.
Well, right. And when you don't know what it tastes like, that to me is like almost an even better wine, because you're like, what is that? Because it's not one dimensional then. Not one flavor or thought comes to mind, because it's maybe unlike something you've had before, and it becomes a curiosity, and then something you just like contemplate.
Yeah, it's got this nut thing going
it's
on,
very
toasted nuts.
It's, I want to say, not perfumey, but cologne-y.
I thought it was like that too.
So like maybe the first one had some perfume notes to it, but this one's like, it's like musk. Yeah,
Like mushroomy. That's what it kind of reminds me
of. What?
Like
mushroomy.
Mushroomy, so it's got a little umami.
I did think, though, that it smelled like something you would walk past somebody that had this kind of cologne, and you would go, what was that?
I'm going to put a little on before I leave.
That's right. I think so.
This is a fun wine.
Well, should we go to the next fun wine?
I am excited about this next wine,
because you two have tried this one. I purposely didn't try this one because of your guys' reaction to it.
Cheers to myself.
Yes, cheers. We're clinking the glasses here. And again, this is another one of those wines. I thought for 4 years I brought something else back, and then I brought the bottle out. I'm like, hey, it's not pink. I thought I brought back...
And we don't care. Oh, wait.
Yeah, I know. It's not pink, and we don't care. I thought I brought back South Africa's only wood-aged rosé from Salms Delta, but this is actually the 2012 Cologne. This is from the Franschhoek Valley in the Western Cape. And the estate itself, Salms Delta, is something worth visiting. It's actually a cultural tour, because there's a whole archaeological story behind the estate. I'm not going to go too much into that, but I will hook up the links so you guys can see it, because it is a must visit. You can spend the day there. I actually had Thanksgiving dinner there in 2014. But this bottle is crazy, because what they did is they have some Muscat grapes, Muscat de Frontignan and the Muscat de Alexandria. And they let them hang on the vines until the very, very last possible minute. So they do a lot of the late harvest, letting the grapes hang out on the vines. And then it's freaking lees aged for 10 months.
Who does that?
Who does that?
I don't know what that is.
Who does that to Muscat? Okay, well, let's talk about what that is. Yeah. So it's like when they make champagne, and we know Diane loves her some champagne, right?
Oh.
So one of the things that gives it that toasty, yeasty goodness is after they've put the base wine into the bottle, they will add a little yeast, a little sugar, liqueur de tirage, as they call it. And then what happens is the yeast eat that sugar, and then they let that CO2 come out, and it gives it the bubbles. But it also sits in there as those yeast end up dying, and they kind of hang out and get all funky and chunky in the bottle. They kind of sink to the bottom, and that's why they turn the bottles around, to let that yeast flavor just decompose into the wine, which give it that creamy richness. So that's pretty much what they did here, except it wasn't bottle aged. It was actually aged in steel tanks. So they let the yeast just kind of die and hang out for 10 months.
That's what the lees are, the dead yeasties.
Oh.
Isn't that Dead We Beasties? We can make a rap song out of that.
And she will. Watch out.
Oh my gosh. So
You are the ramenator.
I want to hear from you guys. So Diane, I think because we're talking about this, I want to hear from you what you're smelling, what you're tasting, and then we'll get to Jeff.
Well, I'm a big bread baker, and to me it kind of smells like starter.
Dough or something, huh?
The starter.
Starter, the yeasty smell.
But starter that's been sitting there for just a little longer.
It's very medicinal too.
It has still some nice fruit, and I thought, if I didn't know what it was in a blind tasting, I'd probably be like, was this a Riesling or something like that? I don't know. I mean, the aromatics of the Muscat come out, but I'm so surprised about the dryness on the palate. Like, I really thought that when I smelled it, I thought this was like going to be really sweet. I don't know what the residual sugar is on it.
I don't know either. It is 14.5 alcohol. And then they do advertise it as dry. But, being late harvest, of course, you're going to have more of the sugars concentrated. So it's going to allow that alcohol to climb. But what I really like this with is I saw this Cambazola cheese at Trader Joe's. And I really liked it with the funkiness and the creaminess of that cheese. Because I think the acidity in the wine in here is still ridiculous. This is a 2012.
Oh, yeah. It is just fierce.
Yeah. And so to me, it was one of those really interesting wines that I thought, yeah.
And it's in a 500 ml like squatty bottle that's
it's
just,
cute.
kind of like on our table here. We're looking at all of these large, wine bottles. Especially the New Zealand one's sort of giant. And then the one from South Africa is so like
It's
petite.
cute. Yeah. Understated.
It's very much got that, late harvest. I mean, you definitely get that late harvest kind of flavor coming through on it. It's got
almost
that
some pineapple-y.
Yeah.
that it's got that kind of heavier finish, and man, it's hot though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised at the fruit that's still there, though. Was anybody else? Because I was kind of like, wow, it reminds me of the, we were talking earlier about Torrontés, where you put your nose in a glass and you think you're going to get some kind of like muscat kind of thing because it's part of the muscat family.
Yeah.
But then you get it in your mouth and it's kind of dry and it's zingy and it's just a totally different wine. And that's actually what's happening here. So I'm really surprised at the amount of fruit that's still here 6 years later. But I don't think the yeast takes over. I don't think the pastry or any of that.
But what's kind of cool is that if that's what you were picking up on first, I think it's a good demonstration of how we all have different thresholds for different aromas and flavors. And so some of us are more sensitive than others. And that might be really, you have a sensitivity to that you can pick out quickly.
Well, but too, that aromas are very tied to memories.
Right.
And so I don't bake a lot of bread,
right,
but she bakes a lot of bread. So she has those aromas committed to her memory, where I'm smelling the exact same thing she is, but I don't have much experience baking bread I threw some stuff in a bread maker and pushed a button. So,
and it's magic.
It's magic, yeah.
No, what's magic is it's cheese with this wine, I'm just saying.
But I also think that the label, when I first looked at it, I don't know, I didn't know what country it was from. So I think it's kind of a mysterious wine. You don't really know before you open it what you're going to get, but I think this is beautiful.
I'm really surprised. I thought at least one of these wines would have been like, because I've held on to them for so long, but...
Well, we only have one more wine to try, so we might have a winning lot here.
I think this one's going to be good, but I'm going to let you talk about it.
The next wine is the only red we're tasting before we dive into the spirits. It's the 2014 Halleck Find Your Light Pinot Noir. This is from Sebastopol Hills, Sonoma County, California. And I bought this wine specifically because it's a partnership with Josh Groban, and he is using this to raise money for his Find Your Light Foundation. My husband and I do a lot of fundraising, and we're also interested in helping children learn more about music and have access to music classes and instruments, and so is Josh Groban. And so we've given this bottle as gifts, and I thought that Val, being a fan of Josh Groban, that she would be totally excited about this, not just about Josh Groban, but also because of the good cause supporting arts education. So
yeah, absolutely. And this actually bottle you can't find anymore.
This vintage.
Is this blended with anything, or is this all Pinot?
No, not. I think it's 100% Pinot, but I don't have Yeah, I mean, it doesn't say 100% Pinot, but it also doesn't say it's blended with anything else.
So you said you actually talked to the Halleck people?
Emailed them,
Okay.
and they're like, come out for a visit whenever you want.
Is Josh
Come
going to be
stay.
there?
I know. I was like, well, maybe in lieu of coming and staying, maybe we can just get Josh on the show.
Only if he sings. Oh my gosh. So what do you guys think of this
Maybe
wine?
he could do the sexy man voice in the intro.
Maybe our next intro. Yeah.
That's him?
Yeah, that's him.
Diane just had to Google someone famous. Now you guys know that's normally me.
I'm looking over her shoulder to see who it is we're talking
No
about.
Josh Groban for you either, Jeff?
No idea.
What is going on here, Val?
Who are these people?
Twilight Zone.
I know. You know, I'm guilty of it though. Normally, like I don't know my actor people, so I've had to Google stuff in the middle of a show before. So back to the wine, Halleck Vineyards. You're welcome.
Halleck Vineyards. No, yeah, Ross and Jennifer. This is a great winery, and this wine is nice though. I love it. I'm thinking, okay,
I think it's young.
yeah. I mean, it can spend some more time in the bottle, but beautiful color. I think it's drinking nicely now though.
It is drinking nicely now. I like it with the figs. I hope you can't hear me crunching in the microphone, but I think I think you could drink it a couple more years out.
What do you guys think?
Let me have some chocolate. And
Jeff?
I initially thought it was Grenache.
Did you really?
Yeah, there's a meaty component to it on the nose
Yeah.
that usually doesn't scream Pinot to me. It screams more Grenache. So it's a big Pinot.
Yeah.
It's got some weight to it.
Mm-hmm. Do we have the alcohol in it? Oh, 14.2.
Yeah. I think it's nice though. I think it's not as cool climate as I was expecting.
Yeah, definitely.
Probably a little warmer. I don't know what the 2014 vintage was in Sonoma. I don't remember.
You know, I've never actually really spent that much time paying attention to all the different vintages at
I don't
every
either.
location in the
I
world.
don't either
so-
because here's the thing, and we've talked about this before. Just because somebody said that 2014 vintage in California was this, or Sonoma or Napa was that, it doesn't mean that this particular site or wherever these grapes came from kind of fell in line with that.
Yeah.
So, and then winemaking does come into play here as well. So, unfortunately, I don't know much about the winemaking here, but it is delicious.
It's got a monster finish to it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I was thinking, it's still got some decent acidity. It's got a nice weight to it. I think it's got a couple more years on it.
Would you say Pinot if you were tasting this blind?
On the color, I would
color
probably
maybe, yeah.
go with Pinot. And then, I do think it smells like Pinot to me, though.
Mm-hmm.
I would maybe even guess that it was a more Oregon Pinot or something.
I think the alcohol, the hotness of it would have taken me to a California Pinot. Sonoma, Sebastopol Hills. I'm not familiar with a lot of the wines.
So you would have gone
I'd have
Pinot
gone
Sonoma,
yeah,
for sure. Okay.
Yeah, I think when you first look at it, because it's so limpid, it's so clear, you'd have gone, oh, well, this is either a Nebbiolo or a Pinot or maybe a Gamay
Sangiovese or something like that,
Sangiovese. And then you get your nose in the glass. Okay, there's none of that old world
Yeah, it would
funk.
not be any of those other ones.
No, you're not getting tar and
So
roses
then
from
you start to go,
Nebbiolo.
it might be really Pinot, but a big Pinot that either, had extra
Yeah. So this is like
cold soak or...
this is raspberries under alcohol kind of thing,
Yeah.
So that's probably not because it's not so delicate.
Yeah.
I tend to find that many of the Oregon wines, they are burgundy without the funk to me.
Right.
Because a lot of them are trying to emulate that style. And so when I see big, more alcohol, then I go to either Sonoma or sometimes even New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a New Zealand Pinot this week that was probably about this comparable in alcohol, even though New Zealand's a little cooler climate. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think because it has enough oomph, it could last for some time, and that might be, too, what they're going for,
Yeah.
So,
Should we get to the hard liquor?
yeah, because
well, I wanted to hear what Diane had to say about it.
when it comes to wine, and I love wine, I really only have 3 different reactions, and that's yum, or or bleh. And this is yum. I'm not as sophisticated and as versed on how to
That's what-
explain
Here's the thing,
wine.
Diane, though. You may not have sat through the classes and forked out all that money,
Yeah.
but there have been times when Diane shows up at my house, she goes, oh, I just pulled this out of my cellar. And it's like some ridiculous $60 frickin' Riesling or something that she's got an exquisite taste in wine. So the thing is, Diane, you know what you like.
Yes. I do know what I like.
Girl likes an expensive bottle because this is about a $50 bottle.
Oh, it is. Mm-hmm. Well, then I like it.
There you go.
Yum.
Just saying. Okay, so on to the liquor.
So these next two are the spirits.
Next to the spirits, I'm going to need that bottle, the Chakal.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're drinking here. This is a very, very interesting spirit that we kind of wanted to close out the tasting with a couple spirits because I found this one in Crested Butte while I was on vacation, which is a little mountain town here in Colorado. Of course, I trolled all the liquor stores, and I'm always looking for something new and weird. And I saw this on the shelf, and I have no idea what it was. And then I read the back of the bottle, and I still didn't know what it was. And so we decided to take it back to our room and taste it. And I thought, well, we're either going to love it or hate it. And what we're drinking here is something from Chile. It's called Trakal, Trakal. And apparently in the world of Patagonia, in the Chilean Patagonia, Trakal means the first warrior into battle.
Okay.
I don't know what kind of battle we're doing here, but if we're going to battle, the first one in is
It's a
the
good
Trakal.
Battle in our livers.
So the website...
Everybody wins.
The website is absolutely beautiful, but what they do here, I want you guys to taste it first, and then I'll tell you what it is. I'm just kind of curious what you think. Give it a nose, give it a sip. You know, and remember, tasting spirits, Diane, I'm not sure if you know this, but tasting spirits is a little bit different than wine. Because one, if you put your nose right over the glass, sometimes it's all alcohol. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it helps to tilt the glass and then just trying to let the alcohol go straight up, and then you can just sniff here so you don't burn your nose out there.
Am I supposed to chug this or just sip it?
No, just sip it. Or if you inhale through your mouth, that helps so that you're not having so much of the alcohol like burn your nose.
Mm-hmm. Just a little sip. Sometimes in the classes downtown, we would tell people just wet your lips with the alcohol.
Yeah.
Especially if you're driving. But what we don't want to do is do the sniffy sniff like we do in the glass. And we don't want to do the because then it's then it's too much. But I'm just kind of curious to see what you guys are smelling and tasting in this spirit.
I mean, I know it's not an ouzo, but there's this little play of licorice that's kind of dancing on my lips with this one. But it's not to the extent that like an ouzo would be.
Right. Some kind of herbally, medicinally, licorice.
Very much. The medicinal thing is spot on.
I was going to say it's kind of fishy to me, but is that bad? Or?
No.
The good kind of fish or the bad kind of fish?
Kind of like old fish tank smell. I don't know.
That's weird.
When I tasted it, to me, it was kind of mackerel-y. I don't know.
Interesting. Mackerel.
I think it's, like I'm in a dentist office and I think my lips just went a little numb.
Yeah.
Siri, stop playing.
She's disobeying
not
me.
gonna
Bad
listen
Siri.
to you.
Hey, Siri.
That was the part of the battle we didn't realize. It was Siri against Val.
I don't trust those. I don't trust them at all.
Val's like physically beating Siri now.
Can't see where its brain is. Don't trust it.
She disobeys.
How would this normally be served?
So this can be served the way it is, neat, or on the rocks, or in a cocktail. So let me tell you a little bit about what this is. So what they do is they start with apples and pears.
Okay.
So it's distilled from apples and pears, kind of like a brandy, but then they add all these local botanicals, and they don't really tell you what they all are, but there's some fruits and flowers and all those kind of local things. And so to me, it reminds me of a gin.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I thought it was kind of like an aquavit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No fish, though.
There are no fish. It's not a fish spirit.
There's no
There's
smoke.
no sushi or anything like that.
No, but what we can do is we can give you the link to the website. You can have it like a gin and tonic. So they recommend serving it with maybe a little tonic water. I've been making Negronis with it.
Oh, okay.
And so I've been using the Koki vermouth and this and the Campari and making some really full-bodied, seriously ridiculous Negronis. But this is something that I think is somewhere between like a brandy and a gin.
The secret ingredients.
And the alcohol in this is about 42
And it's a clear
something.
spirit. I don't think we described it. Yeah, I think. What's the alcohol? on it?
42.
Oh, 42. Okay.
And it just keeps evolving, like the flavor. I mean,
You can feel it persisting and even the glassware, like when you served it to me 2 nights ago.
In a shot glass.
In a different glass, and I had when I tasted it just now in this other kind of dessert style glass, I was like, oh, it's a little bit different than it was the other night. You know, it's kind of a cool.
It is a cool,
geeky and obscure. Hopefully, people can find it.
If you can find it in Crested Butte, Colorado, I'm pretty sure you can find it in most places. But the website is absolutely gorgeous, and there's a picture of the distiller on there as well. So this is actually from Chile. It is a unique thing, but there's a lot you can do with it. So I think it's kind of a fun spirit to have in the house. It's about a $44 bottle or so.
Yeah. Cool.
Very cool.
Okay, grand finale, Liquor de Manzanilla. And this is a chamomile liqueur from the island of Menorca. It is not available in the U.S. The distillery is called Joriguer. And Joriguer is actually spelled Xoriguer. They are known for their gin from Mayon, Menorca, Spain. I brought this back instead of the gin because you can buy their gin in the U.S., but I thought you can't get this. And chamomile liqueur, how often do you have that? That would be a never.
Never.
Like a lot of these other, whether it's like the first wine we tried or the spirit that we just had that Val was talking about, this one is also a bit of a secret. We don't know what's in it other than chamomile. They say field Menorcan herbs and chamomile. So that's all we got for you on that. But what do you guys think it tastes like? It's electric yellow.
I could just smell this all day. It smells really good.
Yeah, it's beautiful, right? But also has some of that anise seems kind of,
big
like
time.
fennel maybe.
Like I was almost wondering
fennel
if
or something.
When I said that from the first one, if it was this glass that was getting to me, because it's
it could have been maybe like if your nose went down to both glasses.
If I was like right about here and I was doing it, and the aroma off this second one is way more powerful than the aroma off the first one.
I liked it with the coconut strips.
And what's cool about the presentation in the bottle is that they have the chamomile stems inside the bottle. So you have this electric yellow, and then you have these herbs that are just hanging out on display. So that's pretty special too. But
this is good.
You like it?
Mm-hmm.
That's a really nice. Is it normally like a digestivo kind of thing? So just straight. I can't even imagine wasting this on a cocktail. I mean, not that cocktails are a waste, but the presentation bottle is absolutely gorgeous. And
it's sweet too.
It is
sweet.
Syrup, like syrup.
It's kind of syrupy, so you don't need a lot. I think maybe in the right context of a cocktail with a mixologist who knows what they're doing. Maybe have an accent like an absinthe would on a cocktail,
or maybe just a little water to kind of.
Yeah, so, but kind of something special that to bring back and fool around with on a potpourri podcast party.
I know. I'm trying to think of the dessert, like a flan or a creme brulee, kind of lavender creme brulee with this.
Oh, I wonder if this would go nicely with cheeses, right? Because I'm not a dessert person. I like cheese for dessert.
It probably would. Hey, while you're nibbling cheese, should we get to the embarrassing wine? We've been yakking here for 44 minutes. Not sure how much of this we're going to cut out, but we should probably get on to embarrassing wine stories. Now, something about the embarrassing wine stories, we like to have our guests deliver those. Now, Jeff, last time you were here, you didn't get to tell one.
That's right.
And he never let us forget it. He never let us forget it.
Shame on Valerie and Stephanie.
No, that was my fault because it was a time thing, and if there was one question we don't want to get to, I'm like, I don't really have a real good one, so.
Oh, it was your fault, and you're admitting it was your fault?
Absolutely.
All right,
I own my stuff, so I'll have to come up with another one if you can give me a second.
Okay, Diane goes first.
Oh, okay. Well, I personally have never had an embarrassing wine incident that involved myself.
We do not believe her. We do not believe
wine,
her.
other spirits and hard liquor. But I have a small business. It's called Dinah Ripper's Creations. And people are always saying, well, what an odd name. Where did you get that? Well, years and years ago, I had an old boyfriend that he liked his drink, and I took him to a Christmas party, a work Christmas party, and he didn't dress up. I said, yeah, you need to dress up. He didn't dress up. Took me to the party, drank way too much wine, way too much, and then decided to leave. So he took me to this party and decided to leave.
Oh, no.
And so I'm out there in the parking lot. What's going on? What's going on? But all he kept saying to me was, Dinah Ripper, Dinosaur, Dynamite. He just kept calling me that. Dinah Ripper, what's going on? And I'm like, why are you leaving me? Why are you leaving me? I can't stand to be in there. So, and yes, there are people who do not know what the internet was when they were young. So late 20s, almost 30, I got on the internet, and of course, I took it to heart. Pick a name that is only special to you. And so I picked Dinah Ripper, and it's always stuck. I'm really the only one out there. So if you Google Dinah Ripper, all my stuff will come up. All of it.
That's funny. And that's your contact information. There you go.
Yeah, how do you spell that?
DINARIPPER.
All right.
That's fun. Oh my gosh, Dinah Ripper. Now, does Dinah Ripper mean anything? I mean, where did that come from?
No.
Is it a character? Or?
He was just
he
being silly.
Making fun of my name. Diane. Dinah Ripper. Dinosaur. Dynamite. Dino Fantastic. He just went on and on and on. Finally, he drove away, and my boss gave me a ride home.
Oh my God. That was great.
So yeah, he's the one. But no, I'm not gonna give him any profits or any royalties or anything like that. That is my name.
That's right.
Mine.
All right.
Okay, so I was doing a pub crawl, if you will. So this isn't necessarily wine. And we were going between stops, and I was talking to the person next to me, and we were very intense in our discussion. This wasn't actually in Las Vegas. And I wasn't watching where I was going. So kids that are on your phones, you need to make sure you do this. Signs are sometimes in the middle of sidewalks. And if you're walking and talking to somebody, you may not realize that you're going to get stopped in your tracks by a big metal sign that's sticking out of the middle of a sidewalk. So I'm with like 15 people. And of course, the rest of the night, I've got this big lump on my head from the sign that I walked into. So it's just a heads up to the kids on the phones. If you're drinking or not drinking, just keep your head up when you're walking. It's always a good idea.
Go.
Is there video?
Thankfully, it was in the time before video.
Weren't those the good old days?
Yeah, no evidence.
Oh my gosh. Well, those are great stories. Thank you for sharing. Should we move on?
I think it's time for the
Time for shout outs.
shout outs. And shout outs to you guys for being here today.
Oh.
Diane took the day off work. I think Jeff did too.
I did as well.
I
Yeah,
was glad to do
yay.
it. Glad to do it.
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Thanks for having me over again.
No, thanks
Yes.
for coming over. This is fun. It's
And
way
Val's
more fun with friends.
hosting all of us, so thank you, Val.
Yes.
Thank you, Val.
Thank you guys for coming here and drinking at the dining room table. We'll have to post pictures of the carnage because
Yes.
it was
Because we never drink here at this dining room table.
Never.
Ever.
I want to burn up some more time. I want to know what everybody's favorite drink was out of the bunch.
Oh, yeah. Good question.
It's
We're the worst
tough.
hosts ever.
This is a tough. I think it's a tough selection, but I really like the Slovenian amber wine.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's my favorite.
How about you, Diane?
I'd have to say that I liked this one, the one from South Africa. And then out of the spirits, I liked the one from Spain.
Okay.
I like the White Mischief the best.
White Mischief?
Yep, that was my favorite.
I think that's the most easy drinking.
Aw.
I think summer sipper.
I agree.
Oh, no, that wasn't meant to be an insult.
You
I'm just
simpleton.
No. I think that
I'm
was
totally
the most
playing with
fresh,
ya.
approachable. The other ones are kind of like, whoa, hey, really wine geeks can get into the other three, I think. But I like the South African muscat too. That one was a big surprise. I totally forgot about the Lee's aging thing until I pulled the bottle up from the cellar yesterday, and then having it with that camembert cheese. That's just like when people bag on Moscato and they don't realize the things that you can do with the muscat grape are amazing.
I bet with the cheese, that would go really well with it.
was
Or
good.
even like
Come
a
on.
lot of, well, we don't know what's in the White Mischief, but I think what's important is like Pinot Grigio in the amber wine. People who drink Pinot Grigio would never
Same
have
here, yeah.
Was
any
that the
idea.
Slovenia? Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my second favorite.
Yeah,
by
I
far.
love
And
both
then
of these.
and then the Muscat, it's like people who are drinking Moscato, they would never realize that the South African, it's just a banging great wine. I mean, totally different. Yeah, and the spirits, they're not even in the same category, so it's so hard to. None of these wines are in the same category, so it's really hard to say what you like the best. It's relative to our mood and how we started our day. I mean, what did you eat for breakfast? That maybe determined which wine you like the best.
It's really subjective, and I think the moral of this whole story, if you're still listening, listeners, is that every bottle does have a story. And then today we got to actually sit around, share where these bottles came from all over the world, how they got here to this one table, and then they're all made differently, and they all reflect a different aspect of the culture that they came from. And I think that's what we want to get across to our listeners. So we hope that you enjoyed. This is not, we don't normally just do a tasting show, but this is something that we thought would be kind of fun and special to do before we take off for wine camp next week.
Yeah, and because these are our patrons here.
Yeah. So thank you guys for coming.
And a shout out too to our sponsor, WTSO.
Wine's till sold out. That's wine at its best price online. One at a time, all until sold out. Wine's Till Sold Out offers free shipping options and 100% satisfaction guarantee. And oh, by the way, follow them on Twitter because they put the specials out there and they're very, very tempting.
And Instagram too. If you're there, go to Instagram. And you can go to your listener page at weeklytasting.com/W25 to sign up and get started, or just go to our website and then you can just click.
And so now we're going to go on to Patreon Love, and we're going to have our Patreons who are sitting here at this table read the Patreon Love. So we're going to start with Diane.
The very Reserva.
Start at the very top.
That's good.
That's
You're
okay.
fine.
Reserva Superior supporter, Robin from the Girls Gone Grape. And Reserva supporter, Auntie in Georgia. Tenacious Tasters, Jeff E., who's sitting right next to me, from the award-winning We Like Drinking podcast, Sebastian of Sassy Italy Tours, Jen in Maryland and the world according to her Instagram feed, David and Lisa in Illinois, Anne-Marie in Virginia.
And it's our Not 5 O'Clock and We Don't Care listeners, Meg in South Dakota, Clay in Arizona, in California, John, Andrew in Aswani, Chantel in Ontario, Canada, Mary Lou in Pennsylvania, Kathy in Georgia, in Colorado, Chris and Janet, and Diane. In Illinois, Steve and Renee, Kathy in Tennessee, Ashley in North Carolina, Sean in Ohio. And our Tastemaker listeners, David in Scotland, Carol in Kentucky, Karen in California, Chip and Katie in Pennsylvania. Sorry, you live in Pennsylvania.
Hey,
Serena,
hey.
Serena for their liquor laws. Liquor laws. Serena in New York. Danielle. Well, good afternoon, Siri. Apparently, Siri is signed up for
Siri, who's in the kitchen?
Creepy.
And our newest tastemaker is Annie here in Colorado. Happy to support your awesome podcast. Thank you for making my frequent commutes between Fort Collins and Denver so much more enjoyable.
At least until she hears this episode.
That was awesome, you guys.
So
Thank you
professional.
so much.
Now I want to do mine over. Next time.
Next time. I think yours was fine.
I think you did great. And you can go to our Patreon page for details, patreon.com/wine25podcast on how to be entered into our monthly drawing, receive exclusive content, and our swag. And you can connect with us between our episodes on the social spaces at Wine25. But, Diane, I think we already know how people can connect with you.
Yes. When I'm in my shop, I make different things. Haven't really found my niche yet, but I do make some sewn items and little bags and things like that. You can find my store at Dinah Ripper Creations, all one word, .shop.
And on social media?
Dinah Ripper, Instagram, Dinah Ripper, Facebook, Dinah Ripper Creations.
Okay.
Okay, and Jeff? What's your handle?
You can find us, the We Like Drinking podcast, on Instagram and Facebook at We Like Drinking, and on Twitter at We Like Drinking 1. That's the number 1. And check out our private Facebook group, We Like Drinking Tavern. If you want to go there, you can go to welikedrinking.com/tavern.
Sweet. So until next week, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yay!
Hey Siri, play some party music.
Thank you for listening to the Wine to 5 podcast.
It's still creepy.
Be sure to check us out at Facebook/WineTWO5 and tune in next week for more fun and useful sip tips.